Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today we're doing a Last Warrior from Another Planet test stand video. So I'm really excited to see you guys, because this is actually suggested to me by one of my patrons, Gloomba. And this deck is a super awesome deck that summons out an insanely powerful old school boss monster, the Last Warrior from Another Planet, which is a super cool card that can basically shut down yours and your opponent's side of the field from summoning monsters, but you can still set monsters. But I have some tech cards in the deck to make it so your opponent won't be able to normal summon or set or even special summon a monster to their side of the field, which is a really awesome thing for this deck to be able to do. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell on there so you can come part of notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards like getting your name description in a single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your patron along with test stands. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this, and definitely give Gloomba some love down in the comments down below for suggesting such a crazy awesome deck. So we're going to go ahead and shuffle up the deck guys, and we're going to have to pile shuffle because you guys know that is dad rule number one. You've got to pile shuffle your deck so you don't brick. This deck is a super consistent deck to be able to summon out the Last Warrior from Another Planet really fast to your side of the field, and it's just super cool to be able to summon that monster onto your side of the field and completely shut down the board. It's just such a cool thing to be able to do, especially with how old the Last Warrior from Another Planet is. It came out of Labyrinth of Nightmare, which was like one of the very first packs in Yu-Gi-Oh! It was just super cool to be able to summon a monster all the way from back then and it still be really good. So we're gonna go ahead and shuffle up the deck now and see what we can do for our first test hand, which is just gonna be really fun, because if we get some really awesome cards, we can make it where our opponent won't be able to summon at all. So we're gonna go ahead and draw into a copy of Necrofusion so we can summon out multiple copies of our boss monster, a copy of Reinforcements of the Army, Cyberstein, that's really good, a copy of Moria Tokai, and a copy of Keeper of Dragon Magic. So this is actually a really good hand right off the bat. You have multiple summons that you can actually perform with this, which is really cool for this deck. You have a way to get to polymerization. You have a way to turbo out a really good boss monster if you want to summon out any boss monster that you want from the extra deck, which is really cool. You have Reinforcements of the Army to get to your other piece that you need. You have discard fodder if you want to, or you can set this card to summon out multiple boss monsters to your side of the field. Totally up to you which way you want to go. But the way that I would go is I would immediately activate the copy of Reinforcements of the Army and then base my entire hand off of that. Because if my opponent Ash Blossoms me, I'm going to go for the Cyberstein play, which is the easy play to just normal summon this card out to my side of the field, pay the 5,000 and summon any of our boss monsters that we want from the extra deck. Or I can go ahead and normal summon the Keeper of Dragon Magic, discard this, and get a polymerization from deck to hand, which is going to be helpful to be able to do. Or I can discard the copy of Moria Tokai to be able to set it back with the copy of Keeper of Dragon Magic. Totally up to you which way you want to go. But let's go ahead and add from deck to hand our copy of Zombre the Dark, just saying our opponent didn't actually stop it. So we're going to go ahead and shuffle up the deck now. We already have Last Warrior from Another Planet in our hand. You guys might be looking at this and going, wait, how do you have it? Well, you actually have Keeper of Dragon Magic. So we're going to go ahead and normal summon out the Keeper of Dragon Magic. And its ability lets us discard a card from our hand, but once we do, we get to add a polymerization from our deck to our hand, which is pretty good. But we can also reveal a monster in the extra deck, which is our Last Warrior of Another Planet, that actually lists the card as material, which will let us special summon our material that we discarded back to the field and face down defense to then fusion summon for the Last Warrior. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and use the Keeper of Dragon Magic to be able to discard the Zombre the Dark to the graveyard to be able to grab from our deck to our hand a copy of Polymerization. Now, once we grab that polymerization, we're going to go ahead and shuffle up the deck because we're not going back in there this turn. So we're just going to go ahead and shuffle it up and see what we can do. So now at this point, you're going to use Keeper of Dragon Magic's ability to be able to put back your copy of Zombre the Dark on your side of the field. Now, keep in mind, after you use the effect of Keeper of Dragon Magic, it will lock you into fusion monsters, so you cannot link summon at all. It just locks you into fusion monsters, which is not a big deal because all we're pretty much summoning is fusion monsters in this deck anyway. You can summon Verte Anaconda if you want to, but that's on rare occasions that you want to go for a copy of Dragoon on your first turn if you know what you're playing against. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and activate the polymerization to be able to fusion the Moria Tokai and the copy of Zombre the Dark to be able to summon out our Last Warrior from Another Planet. If you guys are unfamiliar with what this card actually does, it is a very simple effect with the simplified text of the newest printing of this card, and it has the ability to, if this card is special summoned, you destroy all other monsters that you control, and neither player can summon monsters, but it doesn't prevent your opponent from setting them. They can still set monsters in face down defense position, but they can't actually normal summon or special summon monsters in face up attack or face up defense position, which is kind of neat that they can still set them on the side of the field. But if they don't have a monster that they can set, then you're pretty much going to win at that point. So once you go ahead and destroy your copy of Keeper of Dragon Magic, you're going to set your copy of Necrofusion, because if your opponent does out this copy of Last Warrior from Another Planet, you can then just activate the copy of Necrofusion and go into another copy, which I'll show you guys exactly how to do that. So once you go ahead and let your opponent go, if they don't have an out to this card, you're going to go ahead and draw for turn and draw into a copy of Fusion Conscription. Now we're going to go ahead and activate that copy of Fusion Conscription to be able to reveal a Last Warrior from Another Planet in our extra deck, to be able to grab one of the materials to actually summon it, because it does have to reveal a fusion monster in the extra deck, kind of like Fusion Deployment, but you get to add the card instead of special summoning it to your field, which helps out a lot in this deck because you can't summon monsters to your side of the field when he's on the field. So you want to go ahead and just grab it from the deck to be able to set up your hand just in case he does get destroyed. Now, if your opponent does destroy this card, you can still go for other plays. So let's just say that they, in mid-turn of your turn, they destroy this card. They activate a copy of, say, the Conquistador and pop it. If they're playing Eldridge, they use any card and they just get rid of this with a spell or trap, okay? So what we're going to do at this point is you're going to go ahead and normal summon out the copy of the Cyberstein, pay your 5,000 life points, and then be able to special summon from the extra deck a Dragoon, okay? So you might be looking at this and going, okay, well, you summoned a Dragoon, what are you going to do with it? Well, it's really cool, actually. You can actually activate Necrofusion at this point, which is why I wanted to show you guys this, and you can actually go ahead and banish the materials for another copy of Last Warrior from Another Planet. And the cool thing is it will destroy the Cyberstein, which is a very vulnerable point to be OTK'd, and you still get to keep the Dragoon because this card actually destroys those monsters as a material, or destroys the monsters on the field, and Dragoon can't be destroyed because Dragoon has the ability that you cannot be destroyed by card effects, and neither player can target this card with card effects. So it actually protects itself while also giving you a negate to protect your Last Warrior from Another Planet to be able to go in for OTKs with these two monsters, which is the entire premise of the deck, is to be able to summon out either just a copy of the Last Warrior from Another Planet, or be able to summon out Dragoon plus a Last Warrior to be able to just go in for game and protect the Last Warrior with the Dragoon, which is very, very important for this deck. So that's pretty much the simplified way of playing this deck. It's very simple, and it will catch players off guard, which is super fun to be able to do. I can't tell you how many players I've actually caught off guard in playtesting this deck, and how hilarious it is to actually just summon out the Last Warrior and them go like, wait, only play high-level monsters. What do I do? And I'm like, you lose. So let's go ahead and shuffle up the deck and see what we can do for another test hand. This deck is just so fun to play. I really love it, especially when my opponent, like, all of their, like, outs to Last Warrior is a normal summon, or it starts with a normal summon. And so it's really tough for them to be able to, like, go into. And I will say to you guys, you can kind of read your opponent, too, as you're playing this deck. Because if you attack and they have a hand trap set, and you attack into a hand trap, you know they probably don't have anything else to set. So you're probably going to start swinging directly. Now, it does take quite a few attacks with Last Warrior to be able to end the game, but that's okay, because if your opponent already doesn't have an out, they're going to have to hard draw into it usually, and they only get like one chance a turn unless they're playing stuff like Extravagance, Prosperities, and stuff like that, which is still going to be pretty tough for them to grab something out of the deck that's going to out the copy of Last Warrior from Another Planet, which is just really good. So let's go ahead and shuffle up the deck again and see what we can do for the next one, and see what we can actually pull off, because as you guys can see, very easy to summon this monster to your side of the field. Really glad that I drew Cyberstein to show you guys what else you can do with the deck. Now, the cool thing is I will show you guys, with that copy of Cyberstein, you have multiple targets for the Cyberstein, which is really cool. You don't have to just summon Dragoon, but if you're going to summon Last Warrior from Another Planet, you're usually going to want to summon out that copy of Dragoon, because it can't be destroyed by card effects. You can summon out Dragoon, you can summon out Last Warrior from Another Planet with its effect. You can grab a copy of Nitria Esterdao, which is really, really a good card to be able to summon, but this is pretty much my 3 targets to be able to summon off the copy of the Cyberstein. There are other cards that you can summon off of this card, but those are the main ones that I like to summon off this card's effect, because the Dragoon is just really good at protecting it. I usually just go for the copy of Dragoon, but let's go ahead and keep shuffling up the deck. If you guys would like to check out the deck profile, it is always down in the description below, so you can see that full deck profile down there. So let's go ahead and see what we can do for the next one. So we're going to draw into a copy of Fusion Deployment. We've already got one of our pieces, a Red Eyes Black Dragon this time, Light of Intervention, which is really good, Contract with Dawn Thousand, and a copy of Zombre the Dark. Okay, so at this point, all we need is Polymerization, and we can go in for all sorts of crazy plays. So At this point, we're going to activate the copy of Fusion Deployment, reveal the copy of Last Warrior from Another Planet in our extra deck, and be able to summon out the piece that we don't have to our side of the field. So now we got that card on our side of the field. We are locked into Fusion plays, but keep that in mind. That's totally fine to be able to just lock us into Fusion plays, but all we really need is a copy of Polymerization, and we should be set. So let's go ahead and see what we actually draw into. We have multiple ways to get into. We have like 7 or 8 ways in the deck to be able to get to that copy of Polymerization. So let's activate Contract with Dawn 1000. This card has a really neat effect that when this card is activated, both players lose 1,000 life points, but we both draw a card. So when we draw a card, all cards that are drawn with this card's effect are revealed and remain revealed as long as this card's on the field. And while a player has a spell card in their hand revealed by this card effect, that player cannot normal summon or set monsters. Again, not that big of a deal to be able to do, because if we draw into a Keeper of Dragon Magic, we're still going to have plays, because we're not going to reveal a spell card. And if we draw into a copy of Polymerization, we're just going to immediately activate it and go into our copy of Last Warrior from Another Planet. But this is going to make it so our opponent can't set monsters or normal summon monsters with the Last Warrior, which is just really, really good. So let's go ahead and see what we draw. Hopefully we get a Polymerization or something that can get us to it, because we have a lot of ways to get to it. So we're going to draw a King of the Swamp. That's going to be pretty good, actually. It will be revealed, but that's fine, because we're just going to immediately discard it to the graveyard. We don't really need it. We just need to get to the Polymerization. That's actually a really good way, because like I said, you play like 3 King of the Swamp, you play 3 Polys, you play a Fusion Sage, you play 3 Keeper of Dragon Magic. You have like 12 ways. You have like a bunch of ways in this deck to get to it, like a bunch of ways to be able to get to it. So it's really easy to actually pull it off to be able to get to that copy of Last Warrior. So we're going to go ahead and shuffle up the deck now, and you actually have an insane lock right here, because you can actually activate Polymerization and then Fusion summon these 2 away to be able to summon out Last Warrior. And all we've gone into is Fusion Monster. So at this point, set the Light of Intervention and pass over to the opponent. Now, the really cool play with this is because this is an old school lock. This is very, 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 very old to be able to pull this lock off. But basically what you do at this point is you pass over to the opponent. When they start their turn and they go into standby, you activate Light of Intervention. Because what this card does is monsters cannot be placed face down. And monsters set in defense position are played face up on the field and considered summoned. So basically this says you can't summon, this card says you can't set, so your opponent can't summon a monster at all. This card is revealing every spell card or every card that you draw, so you know what you're playing against the whole time, and it gives you the knowledge to know what to be able to stop. With this card, well, this card's locking you down from setting, this card's locking you down from summoning. So basically you just start going in with this one card and you win the game, which is what's really, really cool. They have to rely on spells and traps to be able to out this. If they do out it, you still have plays depending on what you draw into, but this is a really good lockdown, because basically they can't do anything except for activate spells and traps. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and draw into our next turn, and we draw into a copy of Fusion Conscription, which we can activate, reveal Last Warrior. Or you can actually reveal Dragoon if you want to reveal Dragoon, because if you actually draw into a copy of Red Eyes, or a copy of Dark Magician, excuse me, you can go into this card, and it does specifically list Dark Magician. So you can actually grab a copy of Dark Magician if you want to off this play. That is an option because you're already set up with the copy of Last Warrior from Necro Fusion play. So let's go ahead and grab the copy of Dark Magician off the copy of Dragoon. So we're going to go ahead and shuffle up the deck now. And once we shuffle up the deck, we're going to go ahead and just attack with Last Warrior. Our opponent passes. We draw again, and we draw into a copy of a Keeper of Dragon Magic. So that's really good, because at this point, if our opponent did out this field, if this actually went to the grave, you can normal summon the Keeper of Dragon Magic, discard one of the pieces, add Polymerization, set the piece that you discarded, and then go into a copy of Dragoon all over again, which is really, really good, by using the Keeper of Dragon Magic plus the copy of the Dark Magician that you actually kept in your hand while discarding the Red Eyes to be able to reset it to your side of the field to get you a full play and a full board where you have a Dragoon and a copy of the Red Eyes on the field that's set, which is pretty good. So at this point, you attack again, and then you'll go into your next turn. And let's say that at this point, our opponent does actually out this card. So if they do out this card, you still have some pretty good plays that you can actually go into. So we're going to go ahead and say that they pass back to us after outing this card. Normal summon Keeper of Dragon Magic, and discard from your hand to the graveyard the copy of the Red Eyes Black Dragon. So when you discard that copy of Red Eyes, you're going to be able to add from your deck to your hand a Polymerization, which is pretty good. And the copy of our Red Eyes Dark Dragoon has the ability that just takes a dragon Dragon effect monster to actually summon it to your side of the field. So you can actually just do it this way, very simply. You can actually use the ability of Keeper of Dragon Magic to reset to your side of the field the copy of the Red Eyes, and then use Polymerization to be able to go in for the copy of our Dragoon with these 2 cards. So you can actually just use these 3 cards to be able to summon out the Red Eyes Dark Dragoon, while also having a card in the hand to be able to go in for the rest of the damage with the copy of the negate of the Red Eyes Dark Dragoon, which is really good. Now, you don't have to go for Dragoon. You can go for your copy of Last Warrior if you want to go that route, because this could have actually been a copy of the Zombre the Dark, since we had one of the pieces that we needed in the hand, which is really cool to be able to do with Keeper of Dragon Magic, because you can actually take a step back and put this back on the field, put this back here, put this back in the hand, this would go back into the deck, this would go back into our hand, and this would go back into our hand, and you actually take a step back to where we were before we even went there. So you could actually normal summon this out to the field, discard the copy of the Dark Magician to be able to add the Polymerization to hand, use the Keeper of Dragon Magic to this time, instead of reveal Dragoon, you can actually reveal Last Warrior this time to be able to get the piece that you're missing back onto the field and set it to your side of the field, then use the Polymerization for the copy of the set copy of the Zombre the Dark, and then we go ahead and summon out Last Warrior, destroying our copy of Keeper and giving us the lock all over again. It kind of depended on what you want to do, but that's a really cool thing. I wanted to step back and show you guys exactly what you could do with that field, while also having the Red Eyes still in hand. The way I liked it better was with the Dragoon, because you could have this card set to be able to flip summon it later on if you didn't OTK your opponent at that point or go in for game, and then you can just start attacking with that normal Red Eyes, which is kind of cool. We draw again, we draw on a Cyberstein, which at that point we probably still would have a decent amount of life points to be able to use the copy of Cyberstein to get out another copy of Last Warrior, just in case our opponent outed the last copy, which would actually, in a single duel, if it lasted that long, haha, we'd actually summon out all 3 Last Warriors, which is kind of cool, off the Cyberstein to get the last one. So let's go ahead and see what we can do for another one, because this deck is just super consistent. It's super fun to play, and I really am really glad that I built this one, because it's just such a good deck. Like, it's such a good deck. It's super cool to be able to summon out an old school boss monster like that. But let's go ahead and shuffle up the deck and see what we can do for the last one. So we're gonna go ahead and give it a good riffle really quick and see what we can do, because like I said, guys, this deck is just super good. So we're going to go ahead and draw, and we're going to draw into a copy of Polymerization. That's already good because we have multiple ways to get to our fusion material. A copy of Fusion Deployment. Now we just need one more of our fusion materials. Another copy of Polymerization. A copy of Fusion Conscription. We already have our materials in our hand with the copy of Fusion Deployment and Fusion Conscription. And then we're going to add a copy of Necrofusion. This is actually a pretty decent hand. It doesn't look like a lot, but it is. So let's go ahead and take a quick peek at Fusion Conscription, because it has a really good ability that you reveal any fusion monster in your extract to add a fusion material that's listed on it from your deck to your hand or graveyard to your hand. If you do for the rest of the turn, after this card resolves, you can't normal summon or set or special summon monsters with the added monster's name, which is totally fine because we're not going to need to actually summon the monster. We're just going to use it as material. So we're going to go ahead and activate the copy of Fusion Conscription, reveal the Last Warrior from another planet to be able to grab the Zombraya from our deck to our hand, and then once we add that card from our deck to our hand, the Fusion Conscription will go to the grave, and then you can activate the Fusion Deployment to be able to grab the other piece that you need, and you already have Poly in hand to go into your copy of your Last Warrior. So we're going to go ahead and grab that card from the deck to be able to just summon it to our side of the field, shuffle up the deck again, activate the copy of Polymerization, and fusion summon into it again for the 3rd time. We've actually summoned it every single hand. And the really cool thing is I've actually had this card since Labyrinth of Nightmare, which is just super cool. I remember actually going and trading for this exact copy. So I've had this copy for a long time because it's a super old school copy, which is really cool to be able to actually use it in this deck. So we're going to go ahead and set the copy of Necrofusion to our side of the field and then pass. And then when our opponent goes, if they do out this card, you can basically just activate the copy of our Necrofusion to be able to then banish the materials again to be able to go in for another copy. So if they out the first one, you just get a second copy, which is really cool to be able to just get that card on your side of the field. So at that point, we can go ahead and draw. And we're drawing to a Fusion Deployment. We don't need it yet. Go ahead and attack with this. We draw into another card, which is another Necrofusion. You can go ahead and set it, attack again, draw again. We're going to draw into another Fusion Deployment, attack again. You don't really need any of these cards. Draw into Red Eyes Fusion. They out it, you just drop Red Eyes Fusion and you go in, which is really cool because let's say they out it, you activate Red Eyes Fusion, you throw out the copy of the Red Eyes Dark Dragoon by sending from your deck to the graveyard the materials that you need, which is a copy of Red Eyes Black Dragon and a Dark Magician from the deck, and you basically just have the play where you can go in for game with this one card because you've already got set up. And if they out this, you have the Necrofusion set to be able to go into a second copy of Dragoon, because now you attack, say you pass, they out this card, you go, okay, cool. I'm going to activate the copy of Necrofusion because I drew into a second copy, drop these, banish them from the graveyard, and then you just go in for a second one. Like, you already have it lined up to go in for a second copy of Red Eye's Dark Dragoon. So it's really cool. Like, this deck just turbos out. Like, basically, you deal with one boss monster for a while, and then if your opponent outs the first one, then you just go immediately into the second one. You can't summon multiple ones to your side of the field, but you can get one really good one out, and then pass, and then get another one out, and then pass, and then get another one out, and then pass. And it's really easy to be able to do in this deck with how consistent it is. Like, I've already got the materials in my hand to go in for another play. Now, I would only be able to activate one of these per turn, but I've already got it set up that if I draw into a copy of just any boss monster, like any of the pieces, like right there, I can just activate this and then grab Poly and then go for game. Like, I've already got Last Warrior again. Now, granted, we're in like turn 10 now, but still, the consistency of the deck of every single turn having a play to go into a boss monster is just what's really cool about this deck, and I really like it. So, I think that pretty much shows how this deck plays. It's very simple in the way that it plays. It turbos out Last Warrior extremely easily. We summoned it every single hand, which is really, really cool. Like, it's every time I play tested it, I always summon it first turn. Again, it's kind of hard not to with the amount of like polys you play and the amount of ways to get to your materials. Like, you play seriously like 9 different ways to get to polymerization, because you play like 3 polys, you play like 3 King of the Swamp, 3 copies of Keeper, and a single copy of Fusion Sage. Like, you just play so many different ways to actually get to that card. So you play like 10 copies of polymerization in this deck. So it's super easy to actually get to that card, which is why I wasn't even worried about like top decking it, because I knew I'd get it. Like, I knew I'd get something that would actually let me fusion summon into it. So let's go ahead and say that's good for the testing, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Make sure that you guys hit that bell in there so you can come part of the notification squad. Definitely give Gloomba some love down in the comments down below for suggesting such a cool deck to be able to actually do. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, guys, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.